Okay, everybody. The last time we got together, we started off talking about a variety of summer pests. We talked about a number of surface insects. And what we're going to talk about are a few other summer-related issues, especially those that you are dealing with right now. But before we begin, after the last presentation, I sent out the video and I sent out the quiz. The scores on the quiz were not wonderful, okay, because there were a couple of things that were perhaps misunderstood. Maybe it was my fault, but I wanted to clarify those before we move on and talk about some other things. What I'm mainly talking about here is that for chinch bugs and bill bugs, when we control them, we use a product called Tallstar, or it also goes by the name of Benfin. When we control sod webworms, we are using Dilox. The principal difference between Tallstar and Dilox is Tallstar, when it's applied, stays right at the surface. So if the insects are active and damaging lawns at the surface, Tallstar or Benfin is the product to use. If the insects, though, burrow down into the thatch and we need to get below the thatch in order to control the insects, Tallstar is not going to work because it will not move down below the thatch down into the soil profile. So we need to use Dilox. Dilox is used for sod webworms, even though we characterize sod webworms as surface feeding insects. They do their damage on the surface, but they spend most of the day and most of the night down below the thatch. So we need to move the insecticide below the thatch. Dilox, when somebody waters their lawn, will move down through the thatch, and as a result, it will control the sod webworm. A little bit more information on Dilox. Dilox also we're going to be using to control grubs that get into lawns. Now, right now, you are using Electus, which is a preventive grub control. And as much as we would like the Electus to control 100% of the grubs preventively, it doesn't work that well. You're going to be finding, and you're going to be dealing with some grubs in September and October. And in order to control those grubs when they're active, because they live below the thatch, we're using Dilox again in the fall, okay? When I looked at the results of the quiz, it was obvious there was some misunderstandings in regards to when we use Tallstar versus when we use Dilox. It depends upon where the insects are that we are trying to control. Okay, let's talk a little bit about nutsedge. I suspect you're not seeing as much nutsedge as we normally would see nutsedge because of the drought. All right, you're probably seeing it only on those lawns that are watered. I'm guessing 25 to 40% of your lawns that you encounter right now are being watered, which is where you're going to see most of the nutsedge. Nutsedge, as shown in this picture, is a light green. It's not a grass, it's a sedge, and I'll explain the difference in a moment. But nutsedge is light green, and as you can see here, it's lighter green than the surrounding grasses, and what is a dead giveaway, it grows faster than the surrounding grass. So as a result, if you are looking for nutsedge 4 or 5 days after mowing, this is what you're going to see. The nutsedge is taller than everything else. If you are looking for nutsedge in a freshly mown lawn, it's got to be a lot more difficult to find. Okay, it's still going to be lighter green, and if you know what you're looking for, you'll find it, but it's a lot more difficult to spot. If you have to treat nutsedge as part of a regular app or as part of a service call, it's much easier to find it. It's much easier to treat it if the lawn hasn't been mowed in the last 48 hours. Okay, so growing faster than the surrounding grass is a dead giveaway. As I just mentioned, its appearance, okay, is light green. A lot of customers will call us and say they have crabgrass in their lawn, but this is not crabgrass. This stands straight up. It doesn't fall over, doesn't spread out in a pinwheel-like fashion like crabgrass does. It grows faster than the rest of the lawn, and as I mentioned, it's difficult to see right after mowing. If you get to a lawn right after it's been mown and you are looking for nutsedge, it's difficult to see if the sun is in your eyes. Okay, so sometimes if you're looking for nutsedge and you can't see it, do a 180 where the sun is in your back and not at your eyes, and all of a sudden, boom, it's obvious that you've got a nutsedge situation. If you want to confirm absolutely that nutsedge is the problem, if you pull a stem of it out, okay, it's very distinctively, if you twirl it between your thumb and your forefingers, nutsedge has a very distinctive triangular stem. It's very obvious. If it is a grass, it's either going to be flat or it's going to be circular. Nutsedge is the only thing that looks like a grass that actually has a triangular stem, okay? Typically we find, although not exclusively, nutsedge in wet locations. So we'll oftentimes see it near sprinkler heads or in low-lying areas. However, that is not exclusive. Sometimes you'll find it throughout a lawn and it's not near a sprinkler head and it's in a spot for no obvious reasons. We tend to see more of it when we've had a wet spring, okay? And that's why I said a moment ago, you're probably not seeing as much nutsedge as we typically do because of the drought that we're in the middle of this year. Crabgrass. Crabgrass, as you know, we've already applied 2 applications of preventive crabgrass control, yet we still have crabgrass in some of our lawns. By way of explaining to you and you explaining to your customers why that is, you need to make note of the fact that generally crabgrass seeds, there'll be thousands of seeds in the soil. Those seeds do not germinate all at once. A crabgrass plant will produce thousands of seed each year. And so where most crabgrass germinated back in May, those crabgrass seeds are going to continue to germinate throughout the year. And as a result, you're going to see constant germination, and you'll see more germination as we go through the summer months as the pre-emergent that we applied in the spring degrades and decomposes. Those 2 applications of crabgrass control are probably only effective for 6 to 7 weeks. The warmer it gets, the quicker they degrade and the quicker more crabgrass will have the opportunity to germinate. You're going to see most of the crabgrass in hot soil along drives and curbs, because that's where the crabgrass pre-emergent control degrades the most rapidly. You're going to see a lot of it in thin areas, especially new seedings. Oftentimes people will seed their lawn in the spring, and it's all but impossible to control crabgrass in a newly seeded lawn. A customer might challenge you in that regard, in that there is a product out on the market called 2%. They can buy 2% in a Home Depot or in a hardware store, and it is a crabgrass control sold for new seedings. Sold for new seedings, okay? And it will control some crabgrass in a new seeding. However, it lets a lot of it through. For example, 2% might control 30 to 40% of the crabgrass in a new seeding, but the 50 or 60% that germinate is still going to make the lawn look like it's full of crabgrass, okay? If a customer did any dethatching in the spring, especially after we applied our pre-emergent control, that dethatching will break the barrier that we've applied, and a customer might have crabgrass in their lawn. And finally, crabgrass seed blows around very rapidly. It's minuscule. And if the customer that you're dealing with is surrounded by lawns that don't have lawn service and do have a lot of crabgrass, they're constantly getting reinfested with a lot of crabgrass. So those are some of the reasons that our pre-emergent crabgrass control doesn't work 100%. Just an example of what crabgrass looked like when it first started to germinate in May. The crabgrass that you're looking at right now on the lawns, however, is way beyond this. If we had seen crabgrass at this stage, it would have been very easy to control post-emergently, okay? But when it gets to this stage, okay, it is much more difficult and much more difficult to successfully control when it's in the lawn. Typically, crabgrass, as it begins to grow and begins to mature, it will fall down as you see it here. It'll begin to crowd out other grasses. Crabgrass, unlike our cool season grasses, which are now in drought stress, crabgrass thrives under hot, dry conditions. Doesn't need a lot of water. It loves 90-degree weather, so it becomes very aggressive, where our bluegrass and our fescue are becoming dormant. And that's why it can become such a big problem in the summer. The biggest problem with crabgrass, where you're going to find it, is along the edges. As I said, you're going to find it in thin areas in the full sun. And you'll note that you're not going to find it in the shade. Crabgrass requires 100% full sun. So if you're lucky enough to be dealing with a lawn that's got some tall shaded areas, tall trees limbed up, you've maybe noticed at this time of the year, those are the lawns where the areas of the lawns where the grass still has a little bit of green color, okay? You're not going to find crabgrass in those areas that are shaded, because crabgrass requires full sun. Crabgrass 3 days after treatment. I just wanted to show you, this is crabgrass that is in my lawn along the pool patio. You can see that it's along a paved surface, which means the soil in this area is very warm. Crabgrass was able to get started. Dennis Hollis was out Tuesday. So that I took this picture this morning. That's what it looks like after 48 hours. It turns the crabgrass white. Okay, the drive that we use, and within 3 or 4 more days, that crabgrass will be fading away and pretty much be controlled. Bullpaspalum. Okay, you're going to find bullpaspalum in lawns, which is oftentimes mistaken for crabgrass. It germinates at the same time as crabgrass, but unlike crabgrass, which will fall down and crowd out other grasses, bullpaspalum will not do that. Bullpaspalum is going to stand upright in the lawn. You can see here on the left, okay, bullpaspalum in the lawn as compared to what crabgrass looks like on the right. The bullpaspalum is very soft to the touch, where crabgrass is stiff. The bullpaspalum tends to remain very upright, okay? And you'll find generally by the 1st or 2nd week in August, when crabgrass is coming into its own, bullpaspalum pretty much fades away. The challenge we have is that many customers think it is crabgrass and think we should be able to control it. I'll show you a picture here. There's a couple of different ways to identify bullpaspalum, but one of the easiest ways is the leaves are very hairy. They have a lot of small leaves on the hairs. As I mentioned, it's gone by mid-August. It will not crowd out other grasses. And if you're absolutely certain you're dealing with bullpaspalum and not crabgrass, don't even bother with drive. It's going to do absolutely nothing to control it. So again, there's an example on the left of what it looks like. You can understand why customers would think that is crabgrass. You can see, if you look closely at the bullpaspalum on the left-hand side, you can see some hairs up and down the leaf. If you're fortunate enough to see the bullpaspalum or the crabgrass having gone to seed, you can see the bullpaspalum has got a single spike, such as what you have there on the left-hand side. The crabgrass Latin name for crabgrass is Digitaria. How many digits do you have? You have 5 digits. Digitaria comes from the fact that that seed spike, if you count the actual spikelets on the individual fluorescent, there are always 5 spikelets with crabgrass, where with bull paspalum, you've got the single one that's there on the left-hand side. Okay, any questions on that? Summer annual broadleaf weeds. There's a number of summer broadleaf weeds, summer annual broadleaf weeds. As a reminder, these are all annuals, okay, because they germinate in the spring and they die in the fall. The most common one that you see out there is spurge. Spurge will grow literally anywhere. It'll grow on concrete. In this particular case, it's growing in the crack of a soil that's in drought stress. Summer annuals are like crabgrass. They love hot, dry weather, okay? They don't like it when it's cooler. That's when they tend to die. They're going to fill in thin areas very quickly, especially along the edges where it's thin and it's hot and it's dry. They're going to move in very quickly and grow very quickly. Spurge on the left is 3 to 4 days old. Spurge on the right is 2 weeks later. Okay, that's how quickly spurge can grow. So when you see some of these summer annuals and they appear to be very slow, and you might think, I don't have to bother with those, the customer's never going to see them, they're going to see them a week or 2 later. That's how fast these summer annuals will grow. Not easy to identify by these pictures, but knotweed and purslane are a couple of other summer annuals that grow very quickly. Purslane, you can see it's easily identifiable by the thick, fleshy purple stems on the purslane. They act very much like spurge, germinate, hot, dry, grow very quickly. One that's difficult and a lot of people will sometimes confuse is something called oxalis with clover. We had clover problems in the lawn back in June and early July. We're now getting into the time of the year where oxalis is becoming a problem. Oxalis is an annual plant that if you don't look closely, you will easily confuse with clover. Clover on the left-hand side has white flowers. Oxalis on the right-hand side has yellow flowers. Also, if you notice, you can see if you look closely at the oxalis leaves, each little leaflet is heart-shaped, okay? The clover leaves are not heart-shaped. So don't confuse clover with oxalis. The good news is both are very easily controlled. This time of the year, we're using T-zone for summer annuals. So if you've got them confused and you treat one, you're treating the other with the same T-zone product. Both are going to be very effective on controlling either the clover or the oxalis. Controlling summer annuals and crabgrass post-emergently. Some things to remember, okay? Make sure you're using the right rate, okay? Using more is not going to help, plus it is illegal. If you use more, you're likely just to be burning off the tops. It's not going to be slowly translocated down through the plant and killing the roots. And as a result, it will have the capability to rapidly come back. Walk more slowly than you normally would walk if you were doing general broadleaf weed control. All of these summer annuals and crabgrass post-emergently, you need to make sure you get good coverage, and that includes nutsedge. As I mentioned on nutsedge, it's hard to see if it's recently mown, and it's hard to see if you're looking into the sun. So be careful and don't just dismiss a customer service call saying there's no nutsedge here. You got to take a close look for it. And as I mentioned a moment ago, don't skip the small summer annuals because a week later, they're not going to be quite so small. This is the same slide we were looking at a while ago. Okay, so just on the right-hand side here, just as a reminder to everybody, for weeds, for post-emergent crabgrass, we're using Drive. I showed you the slide of the crabgrass turning white. That had been treated with Drive, and it's doing a pretty effective job. Either nut sedge or any of the summer annuals, you can use T-zone, okay? You don't need to carry dismiss for nut sedge. T-zone can be used for nut sedge, or T-zone can be used for any one of the summer annuals. And the T-zone will do a good job on both. Okay. Couple of other very quickly summer issues to be aware of. As you know, a lot of our lawns have bent grass and a lot of our lawns have a lot of fine fescue. Both bent grass and fine fescue will develop something in the heat called heat decline. Bent grass on the left and fine fescue on the right. You can see in the fine fescue, it's turning a little brown. That's typical of what fine fescue will do under hot, dry conditions, even if the lawn is being adequately watered. Same thing with bent grass. It doesn't like heat. And you can see it looks like the bent grass in the middle of that patch of bent grass is dead. Guarantee you by the middle of September, it's going to be alive and it's going to be green, and it's going to look very much like bent grass all over again. Bent grass, as you probably know, is generally not used in lawns. Most of the lawns have bent grass because it comes in as seed. Bent grass in home lawns will typically show this decline in the heat. You probably know that bent grass is used in golf courses on greens and tees. It doesn't like the heat on golf courses any more than it likes the heat in home lawns. And as a result, golf courses have a practice where what they call syringing, where they will go out 2 or 3 times a day and just simply apply a small amount of water to the greens and the tees to cool the bent grass down. And that's how they would prevent this bent grass decline on their greens and tees.
We do not recommend that for home lawns, though.
No, don't tell a customer to go out 2 or 3 times a day and water. Okay, pretty unrealistic. Okay, one other thing that I wanted to share with everybody, particularly since this video is going to be shown to everybody else in the company. We want to emphasize again how critical blowing off is. Blowing off is about more than preventing runoff or just being neat and polite. What you're looking at here is a almost brand new several thousand square foot brick patio. We didn't blow this patio off. It was covered with our fertilizer, covered with the urea white pellets. The brick was not blown off. It was a humid day and the urea stained the brick. If you look closely, you can see some white spots here. Okay, here, the darker spots are where we had just power washed this walkway and it was still wet. But you can see white spots here in the lower left-hand corner. You can see white spots here. Okay, this staining remains after multiple cleaning with every product that we could find at Home Depot, as well as power washing for 3 hours. All right. More than likely, we're going to have to replace this brick patio. Okay, we're hoping that this staining will fade in the heat and the direct sunlight, but we've got no guarantee of it. So I'm showing you this because if in fact we have to replace this brick patio, it's got to be a several $1,000 situation, not to mention we've got to deal with a pissed off customer. So I'm showing you this only because you got to be careful to blow off. And don't forget to go into the backyard, check pool decks, check patios in the backyard, whether they're concrete or asphalt or bluestone or brick, we got to blow this stuff off.
And at the risk of sounding like an asshole, I'll give you exactly one guess as to who spent 3 hours on his hands and knees scrubbing that brick and power washing and scrubbing and power washing and scrubbing and power washing. Yeah, that's a hell of a guess. It's not a lot of fun and it's a waste of resources. And even if, God forbid, we don't have to spend the $2,000 or the $5,000 to replace the patio, Between all the people going back and forth and all the time and all the effort, not to mention the pissed off patio, the pissed off customer, this mistake has already cost several $1,000s. In labor, product, pissed off customers, like, this is already a huge fund. All right, we've got to be careful with this, man, and this is just walk around the property and blow it down, man. 2 seconds, day one type of stuff here that we just failed to do.
Okay, any questions? I'll get you out of here since it's already been such a long day. Okay, guys, we're all set. Thank you.
Thank you.